There's some, key issues that have been raised here, and these are, if we had been on the table as a youth, then maybe some of the things that you're complaining about as far as reappointment of some of these cabinet secretaries that we didn't want to see, the coming in of the opposition, that will not be the case.
First and foremost, I believe, as you rightfully said, no one went to the streets to become a cabinet secretary. And if that is the thinking, then we are doing the same thing this political class does. Because Raila has been there through a cooperation, through an osomkate, through a handshake, and through now a broad-based governance. What the president back then used to call an amorphous form of governance. That is what we have now. And that is not the reason why people went to the streets. So the political class will always do what they do, and that is to try and get a bone here and there. We understand that. People are on the streets because they have certain demands. As to the governance of the country, they're saying how things are being done, they're not being done in the correct manner. Can we change the way we are doing things so that we can have a better country? She talked about corruption and handling of the cases. Do you know the biggest impediment as to solving the issues, not even 6 months, it is investigation. And I'll tell you this why. Because when you bring showed investigation or showed the evidence into a courtroom, it will be dismissed. So you have a scenario where, and we have to be honest as a country, we have a scenario where proximity to power means that anyone with a corruption case is innocent. But if you are in the quote-unquote opposition, it will always be at your door. Because we have an issue where we weaponize corruption in this country. We are at a day where it cuts across, whether you're a boss somebody with the president of the day, whether you drink tea together or you have hard stuff together, that is immaterial. But if you are found capable of corruption practices, then you should be arraigned in court. And if convicted, whatever you stole be returned. So that we can,
where were these points supposed to be presented, if at all there was no conversation?
Listen, you're losing the plot, my brother. We need to run away from this issue of being told, kuja kwa meza. How many young men will come on that table? They have given you the demands. He listened to some, then listened to some, and he didn't listen to the others. Of course, that means he had them. It doesn't mean everybody has to come to the table. How many people will have on the table? Let us run away from this issue of doing things the same day every other time.
Okay, because let me bring you in.
Because if you're going to fight corruption, you don't need to have a conversation. Okay. You just need to make sure the law is implemented.
All right. Honorable Session.
And independence of the sorry, before he comes in, we also have to make sure that these agencies are independent, because without them independent, we'll have a scenario where they're being used by people either for political expediency or to shortchange justice.
Moving forward, this is how do we take this conversation forward and bring a nation together that it seems to be, at the height of political division?
I think what we are witnessing is simply the provision of Article 10 of the Constitution, public participation, people coming out and rendering their feelings, views, and positions on certain matters. But that does not mean we are going back to reinvent the structure of governance in this country. The structure is all there. It's already in place. The people of Kenya, under Article 1, shall exercise their sovereign power directly or indirectly through their representatives. And we have a government in place. If it's just but about the issue of corruption, we have to decide as a country either to live with corruption or to do away with corruption. It's an option we have to make. And if it is about doing away with corruption, and we have said, and many have said, our economy is so resilient because the activities of corruption, plunder of resources, and stealing of resources since 1963 has been on a super scale. But still we have an economy that is strong, that is still very strong and moving. If really we were to bring corruption down to zero, then we will have an economy that will turn around, the manufacturing will go up, jobs will be created, and all the youth will have their jobs. And I think that is why the Gen Zs gave very simple, clear submissions which the president adopted. So then, when we get down to corruption, and I think the president has been very keen when releasing the last patch of the cabinet. He spoke very strongly about the structures on how to deal with corruption. In the past, corruption fight was weaponized against individuals for political reasons, which is wrong. You cannot personalize.
So corruption,
and that is why there is need to strengthen institutions, particularly the judicial processes, and also to give tools to do that. The tools is the pieces of legislation which the president has talked about. There are issues of, there are bills like conflict of interest, which is in the which was in the Senate. And, you know, it's interesting when you have former governors oversighting the counties and even working on the audits of the work they did. It's a complete farce. And that is why we need to clean up our legislative processes. We need to strengthen the prosecution process. And we need to totally criminalize any form of corruption and eliminate it within the public service. This is what the Asian Tigers did. The Asian Tigers that benchmarked with us, Malaysia came to benchmark with us, same level, same economy, around the 60s. We are talking about the Singapores, Koreas, and the rest. They are moving forward because they've eliminated corruption completely to zero. And I think the president has picked this from the Gen Zs, and he has picked it on good governance. If you see, getting rid of the entire cabinet and nominating new ones. And by the way, they are only nominated. And even if Kenya has any issue with any of the nominees, there's a process in parliament. You can raise, you can petition. So the Kenyans still have an opportunity. And the president is not resting.
Doesn't seem to have
the president is proceeding. The president is proceeding.
Let me
I don't think we sit in the corners of lamentation. It is time to come out to the forefront and submit your views. Whether those views are taken or not, you shall have submitted.
People submit, but it's lip service. Do not hide your head under the sun. We have no parliament. Let's move on.
Okay, so we have people that died in this particular process, and you know, the Gen Zs are raising, you know, quite important issues to some extent. They say, okay, we can't have a conversation if at all most of the people that went to the streets, you know, were killed. We can't have a conversation if police brutality is not addressed, especially those people that have been accused of having used excessive force when it comes to dealing with protesters, to some extent having injured some and killing others and all that. So how do we go about having this conversation, if at all, healing this particular nation? Because what they're raising is, you know, pertinent, it's very important. And we won't have healing unless, to some extent, we deal with those issues that are at the core of all this conversation.
You know, I have had the unfortunate experience of being a Kenyan living in this country during 2007-2008 post-election violence. And at one point it felt like we can't move forward. But you know, unfortunately, with how life is structured, or how life is that there is no other option but to move forward. So the question becomes, how do we move forward? You know, I feel bad because I was listening to my co-panelist here, and I feel bad that he's in it seems like he's in a situation where he's totally given up. Despair. You know, it's despair. And you know, the worst thing about that feeling is you are one of, I know he vied in the last election because I vied, we were both candidates. And I can tell you, when you have candidates such as him despair, you know you've almost lost the country already. Because I've seen the changes that that new legislators, younger legislators, have brought into parliament. And I can tell you it's a breath of fresh air, which even the older politicians and the older systematic discriminatory, let me say, cartels that are in parliament, they don't like it. They don't like it that there are these young people who are changing the status quo, who are coming into parliament to say we must do things differently. So when I hear him talk in such despair that we don't have a parliament, I'm just like, I feel bad. Because if you already are in that position, how then do you become the active Kenyan who is supposed to take this country forward? How do we move forward? First of all, it is the same process we had in 2007, 2008. We must acknowledge the failures, which I think, and I want to, and it feels, people will say, that one is a sycophant. But, you know, give the devil his dues. You have to, first of all, acknowledge that there is a problem, which the president acknowledged. You have to also acknowledge that the problem is with this particular group of people. And without acknowledging it, you know, you can't change anything. Yeah? We saw the president come to a point where it was, people, in fact, people are saying the president has been held hostage by Gen Z. No, the president got into a realization that, damn, we thought we were doing so well. But in real sense, we are not doing as good as we should because these people are in the streets.
Okay.
So the first point is realization that there's a problem, accepting that there's a problem, and accepting your shortfalls. What we have seen is also the president accepting that, by the way, you thought you had a super cabinet. No. Those people are not competent. You need to figure out how to remove the incompetent people.
So we started.
We are already on a path of moving forward. I don't want to say we are on a path of healing because everyone has their time of healing.
Okay.
I can heal in a day. He can heal in 1 month. So you can't say we've healed.
Okay.
I can tell you, for instance, because I said, in 2007, 2008, I had the unfortunate experience of being in this country and as a Kenyan. I still haven't healed from 2007, 2008 and everything that I had to go through. Okay. And it's still a process that I'm still, in fact, there are triggers, just as you have said. If you go to certain places where they experience conflict, you just need a small trigger and they're back up. So healing is a process. Okay. But moving forward, there is no other option. You know, from the entertainment industry, they say the show must go on. Okay. So the youth should first of all understand you can't be left behind. Gen Z should know. You cannot sit here and complain and say this and that. You can't be left. You know what you need to do? Get on the bandwagon. Okay. Remove these people in the sense that you need to say, but we have come to the table. But these are the things we have discussed. But this, you know, these are the things we asked for. Mr. President, even on the X space, we had volunteered these 2 names to do ABCD. And they were not there. And they were not there. Mr. President, let's get on the bandwagon because if you remain behind as falling into despair, you're also not helping the country. Okay. Yeah.
Is there hope?
You know, first and foremost, let me say what I mean when I say there's no parliament.
And I hope, Nordin, you're still vying.
We'll talk.
Because the way you sound, you sound like you've given up on this politics, and that's not good.
Let me tell you what I mean when I say there's no parliament. Of course, you have Bunge Towers, a beautiful building, and we have the chambers right across. The issue here is not about the building or whether we have members of parliament. We have, but the individuals that are in there that you expect to legislate, oversight, and represent. Let me not be unfair and say all, but a majority are as good as those chairs being empty.
Okay, so okay, so
a majority of them are as good as those seats being empty. When you listen to members of parliament, someone say, "Unajua finance bill hata sikuwa nimesoma," but because it's a party position, it's a party line. Those are the things we are angry about. I'll tell you for free. Yes, they say that we belong to political party. It is true. But we are not a political party voting system, my friend. There are people who elect you to go and represent them, to legislate, to represent an oversight. You have members of parliament who believe because I'm in Kenya Kwanza, oversight is not my duty. That's a duty of Wala Kukobaridi. They forget that even though you're in Kenya Kwanza, you're meant to oversight the same administration that you helped get into office. Okay. So we have a scenario where, one, we have the building, we have the chairs, but most members there are incompetent, are inept. Okay. And they will hate me for saying that, but it is true. That is why, thank you. And that is why my clarion call to anyone who didn't vote is to get your IDs. But we have another problem. Getting over IDs is a problem. And then you still have members of parliament who are going to just sit down and listen to a PS say that IDs are going to expire. Okay. Are you trying to tell us that, are you trying to tell us that my citizenship is upon renewal? What nonsense is that? When you talk about incompetence, those are the things we're talking about. Then when you ask such questions, you go, oh, by the way, even our neighbors, their IDs expire. Why do we get compared to our neighbors when it has to do with the worst of things? But we want to talk about, oh, we are moving ahead as a country compared to Singapore. Okay. What nonsense is that?
I get your point, but now this is the thing. Do we have hope at all?
Of course there's hope. So long as you're living, unless you're a dead man, everyone that is living, there's hope. There is time and hope to vote out this garbage that we have there at the end of the day.
So the solution to what we are experiencing right now is 2027, according to you?
Listen, don't